Okay. So I want to thank you for being here. I know we're a small group, which may actually just lend itself to more conversation, around sharing thoughts and ideas and experiences. So I think we can kind of take advantage of this being a smaller group today. If you had a chance, I don't know if you had a chance to print out the worksheet. If you didn't, that's okay. Even if you have just a pen and paper, I think that will do just fine. So I'm just going to share my screen here for a second. And we'll dive in. So today we're going to look at feeling energized and choosing to feel energized from the perspective of foods. So we can feel energized from a lot of different things, especially exercise or mindfulness. But today we're really going to focus on nourishing our bodies with food. And, we all know which foods sort of are healthier than others, but we don't always choose those foods. And so sometimes we rarely choose those foods. And we also know that the more energy you have, the more, the better you're going to feel, the more motivated you're going to feel to do things, to care for yourself, to exercise. And so the goal is really to choose the healthier option more often than we don't. And when we feel energized and we feel good about ourselves, then it also impacts the rest of the other aspects of our life, like our job or our families or our relationships. And that just lends itself to having a more fulfilling overall life. And so today we want to spend time really learning more about ourselves and why we make the choices that we make. So like I said earlier, we often know what those foods are that are healthier than other foods, but really understanding why is it that we make the less healthier choice, if I was to say it that way, why we make those choices when there are other options. So for example, we might choose if we're hungry and we've let ourselves go too far with our hunger, that we just grab for the first thing that's in our pantry versus planning and making sure we've prepared a healthier option before we get too hungry. So sometimes it's about planning. Sometimes it's just about laziness. If you want to choose fresh vegetables over a box of crackers, right? It's about having to wash those vegetables and cut them up and have them ready. So today we want to really tap into some of the reasons why we choose the non-healthier option over the healthier option. So even sometimes, you might have opened a bottle of wine over the weekend and there's some left. And so you see it in the fridge and you think, oh, well, I'll just have another glass of wine. Why not? Because otherwise it'll go bad if I don't finish it. So it's just being aware and conscious and really creating that presence of mind as to when you make certain choices. And so today also, we're going to really focus on creating that awareness and creating that presence of mind. So when you go to choose that extra glass of wine or the box of crackers, to get curious about why and think about, oh, do I want the crackers, or maybe I should go in the fridge and cut up some fresh vegetables instead. So we want to get to the point where we're choosing the foods that nourish you more often than the ones that don't, and that it just becomes habit. It becomes what you do. It becomes part of your lifestyle. And so today is really just the beginning of that, and just starting to create awareness for you around those choices that you're making. So our goals for today are, one is to really get clear on which foods give you energy and which foods leave you feeling drained or rob you of the energy. The second goal is to really understand why and when you choose the low energy foods. And the third goal is to develop a presence of mind around making certain food choices. So, hi, Rebecca, glad you can join us. So what I want to do before we really dive into the exercise is to take a moment to just ground ourselves and engage in a short breathing exercise. It sort of helps us clear our mind and help us get grounded and bring us to this moment here. So if you want to close your eyes, you're welcome to. If you want to leave them open and just stare out your window, you're welcome to as well. And we're going to take a few deep breaths. So go ahead and inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And just go ahead and take a few of those cleansing breaths to help us relax. Pull your shoulders away from your ears. Relax your eyelids. Maybe unclench your jaw. Sit up nice and tall, extending your spine. And just clearing your mind of whatever it was you were doing before you arrived here. Just putting it aside for these next 20 minutes, because it'll be there when we're finished. You can pick it back up then. Bring your focus to this workshop about food choices, why we make those choices. Take one last deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. All right. I often like to do that, sometimes selfishly for my own sake, to just ground myself during these workshops. But I do feel like it helps us get focused on the topic at hand and let go of everything else we were thinking about or doing before we arrived here. So I'm going to start with the worksheet. So if you have it, great. If you don't, if you just have a pen and paper, that's great too. And I want to start with the first question and ask you to list the foods that you feel really rob you of energy. So the food choices that you make, what are the ones that, leave you feeling drained or sometimes sluggish, or maybe give you that quick pick me up, but you find yourself crashed out on the couch later on? And just take a minute. We'll give you a minute here to write some of those down. And when you're done, if you want to share them in the chat, or you want to go off mute and share what some of those foods are, you're welcome to do that.
I think for me, it was thinking about carbs, that maybe like bread or
a
couple of cookies after lunch.
Yeah. Well, because we sort of want that little sweet
little taste. Yeah.
Yeah, little taste.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know really bread turns to sugar. And when we raise our sugar levels within a very short period of time, we just start to crash. I know for me, actually, it's ice cream. And it was a few years ago, finally, like I made this connection because I'd have a little bowl of ice cream sitting with my family. Everyone's having ice cream, watching a movie. And within 20 minutes, no kidding, I'd be passed out on the couch. And I'd missed the whole movie. And I kept wondering, like, and this would happen over and over. And I realized that I think it's the ice cream. I think I'm getting a sugar crash. And so now, I might steal a spoon from my kid's bowl, but I don't eat ice cream anymore. Like I made that conscious choice. And it's really about, creating that awareness or getting in touch with your own body and your intuition as to, okay, why am I feeling like this? So yeah. So I think it's, those foods that turn to sugar really quickly.
For me, it's a nice cold glass of milk. I shake up that, especially whole milk. Courtney's kids have it. I can't keep it in my own refrigerator, but and then I don't have one. I have to have another. And then I have to have a cookie with it. And then and pretty soon my stomach hurts. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But I love a good glass of milk.
Well, and that's the thing, like we enjoy it in the moment, right? It's sort of that quick pick me up that we enjoy in the moment, but then leaves us feeling not so great afterwards. So yeah, sweets, pasta, milk. Hi, Sanam.
Sometimes, Tanya, would it just be like when you said the cookies and milk, that was something we had after school when we would come home, and I'm, well into my 70s here, so it's maybe as you said that, I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's why I always enjoy milk when I have a cookie. I'm a big milk drinker and things.
Yeah. And I think it's part of the American culture.
The milk.
Right? Yeah. The milk and cookies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like even today, I was working at the middle school, at the cafeteria for snack time, and it's all carbs. Like it was like these mini pizzas and pretzels and croissants. There are no healthy choice. Like there was some fruit. None of the kids went for the fruit. They all went for the pizza sold out, the pretzels sold out, the croissants sold out. And I cringe myself, but what am I going to do? Yeah, because it's part of the American culture, bread and so, but if we can individually ourselves shift to making different choices, that just because we grew up that way, or just because the American diet is such a way, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to follow it if it doesn't feel good for us, right? So the next step I wanted to ask you to do is, of those foods that you listed, circle the ones that you tend to default to regularly. What are the ones that you choose for that quick pick me up and are your typical go-to foods for like that quick satisfaction? And follow that up with, how do you feel when you eat those foods? So how do you feel when you have the milk and cookies, or you have the bread? And what's the emotion that's associated with that food? And if anyone wants to share in the chat, please do. Or if you want to go off mute or share.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think this kind of goes along with what you were saying about the cultural thing, right? For me, it's rice and spicy food. Comfort. When I'm stressed or if I'm super happy, those are the foods that I go to. And then when I eat those things, I want to have a glass of wine, and then it feels so good. And then it starts feeling like really bloated and the sleep gets messed up and everything. but those are my comfort foods, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't really stop to think about it, right? We just do it because it's what we've done all along. And
Right.
we sort of put up with how we feel because we enjoyed it so much in that moment, right?
I find myself chugging the milk to do it quickly, almost as if I'm going to get caught. I mean, it's really silly, but I do. I'm aware of that happening lately. Why am I just, why don't I just enjoy it a little mouthful and savor that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
Make
it's
it.
interesting because that's part of what I want to talk about today is really getting, rather than placing judgment or feeling shame, right, for having it, just get curious. So get curious about, oh, why did I have 3 glasses of milk versus just 1? And I think milk is a pretty good choice. Like, I don't think it's a terrible choice, unless you're, lactose intolerant but yes, it does have, whole milk is whole milk is actually good for you. It's better than 2%. It's better than skim milk because it actually carries all the nutrients in it. The nutrients are carried in the fat. And what we've been brainwashed to learn is that skim milk, like when the whole fat-free fad came out in the 80s, it was marketed so heavily that we need to go fat-free, but then they just put fillers or other things in that food that make it less nutritious. So the whole milk is actually quite nutritious for you. And if you do drink a lot, so my nutritional therapist told me, if you have something regularly, have the best that you can get. So I don't know if you get Strauss family milk down in LA, but it is supposedly the best milk you can get. And it's non-homogenized. And so it retains all the nutrients in the milk. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but maybe 3 or 4 glasses a day might be, if you feel bloated or you don't feel good after it, then, you might want to think about cutting it back. But I think it's a much healthier choice than 3 or 4 glasses of wine, right? So, and again, like wine is part of our culture, or drinking alcohol is part of our culture and doesn't suit everybody. So it's about getting curious as to why you make those choices that you do. Is it cultural? Is it just habit? Is it the way you grew up? And not feeling shame for it or judging yourself for it, but just asking yourself why. So, so when you choose those foods, what's it like for you? Do these foods provide you with a kind of relief or an energy boost, or do they leave you feeling worse than you were before you had it?
Makes me really sleepy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to replace that feeling of sleepiness, how would you like to feel instead?
Energized. Well, I would like to feel, I think it has so many impacts, right? The spiciness is not necessarily the best for everybody or for everyone's bodies. And I would like to feel light and good and satiated.
Yeah. And again, it comes with just awareness, right? So maybe the spicy food doesn't need to be so spicy, right?
Right.
Spice can add a lot of flavor. And with some people, it doesn't agree with some people, like my father-in-law. But so you can think about maybe modifying right? The level of spiciness or which spices you put in. And if it's the hot chili spice that really bothers you, maybe you don't have it as hot.
Right.
And again, like spices, some spices are actually very healthy for you, right? Like, so Sanam and I share a lot of the same cultural foods, and there's a lot of like cumin and turmeric and ginger and garlic and in our foods. And those are actually really healthy spices to include in our foods. But again, if those don't agree with you and they don't make you feel good or leave you feeling good, then be aware of that. And maybe you make different choices, you know? And again, it's all about understanding why you're choosing certain foods, and that you can start to shift your choices. So Beth, if you like to have a cookie or bread, like you said, after a meal, maybe, you know, like I've been making these little protein balls. It's having those handy that taste really good, but they don't give you that sugar spike, right? So there are alternatives to all of our choices. And you can either choose to feel sleepy or bloated, or you can choose to feel energized. And it's really a choice. And that's really what I want to bring awareness to today, is that noticing what your body needs. And that you don't have to just go with the status quo, and you don't have to go with what the American diet says. It can be shifted and altered. Okay, so let's switch gears. So now on your handout is for you to list which foods give you energy. What are some of those foods? Oh, you're on mute, Beth.
I would go to cheese or turkey or some type of protein, because I need that. I always feel, you know, like after I've exercised at the pool, then I'm hungry when I come home. So I usually have something that holds me over till dinner, you know,
Yeah.
just a little.
Yeah, recently we started, you know, our go-to in the afternoons after school. Ryan would have friends over and ask, you know, cheese and crackers, like that's their favorite thing. And then suddenly, like, I'm getting dinner ready and it's happy hour, and like, maybe I'll have some crackers and cheese. Oh, a little charcuterie. How about some olives? Ooh, wine would go well with that. And then it was this sort of unfolding. So now shifting gears to what feels good, we've started recently stocking, and it's all about making those choices before you go grocery shopping and trying to rethink. So hummus and like either celery is a popular combo, or sometimes we'll do carrots if you're a little hungrier. But I find I like the lightness of the celery and the crunch with the protein from the hummus. And I feel, you know, like I still feel good and energized and healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with you with I actually like the vegetable better with the hummus versus the cracker. It seems too dense for me now, but I still have the cracker once in a while. But yeah, but again, like it's, you know, you and I spoke, Rebecca, and about my email and how it just made you think about, oh, should I have that glass of wine? Oh, maybe I won't have it tonight, you know? And because like me too, I'd have a glass of wine and I'd be passed out on the couch, you know, in the evening, and I want to be hanging out with my kids. And here I am like yawning away. And because with wine too, I get that sugar crash. So of the foods that give you energy, how do you feel when you eat those consistently? I think, Rebecca, you said makes you feel light.
But satiated.
Yeah. Any other feelings or thoughts around how those foods make you feel?
I think it's just a little bit of energy to do the next chore or whatever the activity is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It makes me not so desperate to grab for the cracker
Yeah.
or the whatever,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
now I feel satiated, and like you said, you have a little energy, then, you know, I can finish getting dinner ready and wait to actually have a proper meal, as opposed to fill myself up and then I'm not hungry when it actually is time to dinner. And it's almost like having two
That's true.
meals. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and part of it is planning, right? So like you said, like Rebecca, now you're making your grocery list before you go to the store. So you're not having some of that food maybe in the house, for one. And two, planning your meal times where you're choosing a healthier snack to hold you over till dinner. So you're not just grabbing in the cupboard for chips or crackers or cookies. That's easy. It's right there already made. Maybe you're cutting up or washing some celery and having it with hummus because you have time, you know, you're doing that before you get too hungry. So I think planning and meal timing are a really important part of this as well. So, you know, it sounds like you all know yourselves pretty well. You know the foods that actually make you feel more energized, the ones that don't. So, so in that respect, and I was just actually looking at the time, and I want to be respectful of your time. We have a few more minutes. Can everybody stay on a little bit longer?
I can.
Yeah.
Great. So when you think about the low energy foods, when is it that you actually default to those? Is it when you're hungry? Is it when you're stressed? Is it you want to take the edge off, so you have that glass of wine? Or is it more because it's just what you've done, and you don't know what other options or choices you have?
All of that, you know, or what's around the house, or when you have a craving and or tired, and I don't know, everything. All of those are factors in my life.
Yeah. And when you have that craving, what are you actually craving?
Emotions, or what do you mean?
Yeah. I mean, it could be emotions,
It could
right? And
be
so you might
comfort, right?
associate.
Comfort, satiation, or maybe just to
Mm,
fill up, or maybe some people eat through anxiety, right? So, or
right.
stress, anger, yeah, or joyfulness too. I mean, you want to open a bottle of wine when you feel like it, when you want to celebrate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to say on the wine thing, I go in phases when it's warm out. I
Yeah.
don't know why. So
Yeah.
like the past week when it's warm out, I'm like, oh, a cocktail just fits the mood. But then I'm like, oh, I get in a phase. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that's kind of positive, but then there's also the time where it's like, oh my gosh, it's been a long day. Maybe a glass of wine will drown the kids out. So
Right. I mean, and it's not about depriving ourselves of those joyful things, right? Those things that help us feel good, or even help us take the edge off with the kids. But it's about starting to think about not what we don't get to eat, but what we get to eat or drink. That we, because if we deny ourselves of those things, then we're going to crave them more. We're going to want them. So it's not really about deprivation. And while that might work, like most diets are about, you know, what you shouldn't eat, what not to eat. And that might work for a short period of time, but it's not sustainable. And so what we want to think about is a strategy that is sustainable, that's going to, it's not a magic overnight thing, what we're doing here today. It's something that takes time for you to develop and incorporate into your lifestyle. And we want to focus on, I get to eat the high energy foods because they make me feel energized. They don't make me feel sluggish and asleep on the couch, or you know, having that feeling of bloating or what have you. It's choosing to feel good. And it's really about how you feel. And starting to kind of nurture that relationship with healthy choices and training ourselves to feel pulled naturally in that direction. So when we operate with it at a higher level of energy, that we can then tap into what I call our interpersonal power. So that we can tap into that creativity or accomplish or be productive and do the things that we want to do. But until we feel energized, we don't have that extra energy to put forth towards whatever it is you want to do that day, because we spend all of our energy running after the kids or taking care of somebody else, or, you know, we naturally as women are nurturers. So we're always caring for other people. So we need to feed ourselves and take care of ourselves first, so that we do have the energy, one, to take care of all the people in our lives, and two, have that little extra energy for ourselves to think about, okay, well, what's next for me? What are some of the things that I want to do for me? And when we focus on what we get to have over time, you realize and you start to choose those more energizing food options. So it's going to take practice, and this new paradigm is really about focusing on what you get to eat versus what you don't get to eat. And that we want to listen to the signals in our own body and become aware of them and say, okay, well, I just ate this and I feel really bloated. Maybe next time I should make a different choice.
Mm-hmm.
And because you are the expert on your own body, right? I mean, there's all kinds of diets out there, but not every diet fits every person. You yourself know your body best and how your body reacts to certain foods. So this is all about helping you stay in tune with how you're feeling in relation to what you're eating. And so one of the handouts I sent to you is a 4-day experiment where you can experiment with different foods. So over the next 4 days, take a day, and maybe it's a all protein breakfast you have, and write down how you feel right after you've eaten it and how you feel 2 hours later. Are you still satisfied, or do you feel bloated? Or, you know, if it was an all carb breakfast, were you hungry 2 hours later? So if you experiment with that, then you get to know which foods actually keep you satisfied longer and don't make you feel bloated or tired or hungry. That, you know, with that soon thereafter. So I gave that to you as an option, obviously, to use if you'd like over the next 4 days. It's a fun little experiment. And at the bottom of that handout are some food options that you can choose as well. So we're gonna just wrap up here. And I just want to summarize with some of the takeaways that I want you to walk away with today. One is, you know what time of day you're most vulnerable. And so plan for that, right? Like Rebecca said, she plans to have celery and hummus before dinner because, and it's there ready at the, you know, ready for her to have, because that's when you're starting to get hungry, but it's not quite time for dinner. Secondly, to focus on what you get to eat, not what you don't get to eat. And what happens is over time, so it's not about taking away necessarily all those foods, but maybe adding in. So maybe you have that milk and cookies, but maybe add in an apple, or add in celery and hummus, or add in celery and peanut butter with that as well. something that has a bit more protein to it, that's a little healthier, so that if you have that with it, you may not have that second or third glass of milk because you'll be full. So it's about adding in the good, healthier options. And then slowly over time, what happens is that ends up being your go-to. And then you don't want the bread or the cookies anymore. And replace judgment with curiosity. And I think this is so important to do, that we don't shame ourselves for having that guilty pleasure, or, you know, like Sanam and I finishing that ice cream cake. You know, there are times to enjoy it. And then there's times where you find, okay, if you're doing this on a regular basis, just get curious. Why am I craving this? Is it something else in me that's wanting to be nourished, comforted? And so what are other more healthy ways that I can nourish myself? Right? So maybe rather than having half a bottle of wine, you go and have a hot bath, or you go for a walk, or you journal, or you know, there are other options that are healthier, that don't even involve food, really, that you can nourish yourself with. So before we go, I just want to share with you, and I'll open it up to questions as well, but I just want to take a few minutes to share with you some free resources that I have. So the first, I'd like to offer you a free consultation, if you like. It's a 30-minute consultation. And if you'd like to dive deeper into some of the challenges that you're having, I'd be happy to dive into those with you. And I'm going to put in the chat where's my chat box? A link where you can book a 30-minute consult. So feel free to do that. I also have an Instagram account, which I'm trying to show up there a little bit more consistently. Sorry. And my handle is Tanya Carrigal Coaching. And I try and put tips on there, or things that I'm doing that you might find helpful. So if you are on Instagram and want to follow me, you can do so there. And then I am also trying to put together these monthly workshops, and they'll vary in topics from nutrition and food to exercise, as well as mindfulness. And so, you know, hopefully, I'm hoping that I'll have one in April. Sometimes life gets in the way and I can't do it, but hopefully the April one, I'll see you there. And then just to share with you a little bit about my health program. So I am a health coach, and I offer private health coaching for women who want to turn healthy eating and exercise into their lifestyle. And, you know, we all know change is hard. And when you've been living your life a certain way and eating a certain way, it's hard to make those shifts. And sometimes we just need an accountability partner, or somebody there with us to guide us, to help us give us those tips or the action steps to take and be accountable for them on a weekly basis. So my program is 4 1-hour private sessions. And in those 4 weeks, we set an achievable goal to reach in those 4 weeks. In each session, we have manageable action steps that keep you moving towards your goal. And we have weekly accountability check-ins. And I also provide you with handouts and recipes and action guides for you to continue to work through that week when we're not together, that keep you moving towards your goal. So, and these are just a few testimonials from some of my clients. And one of my clients that really comes to mind is she's a woman in her 40s, and she'd never stepped foot in the kitchen. She was single and didn't have a family to necessarily cook for. But when I met her, she was ordering frozen meals that she would have for lunch and dinner, and had never had salad, had never had like vegetables. And by the time we finished working together, she was making salads. She'd signed up for Sunbasket and was starting to cook her own, like she was ordering meal kits and was starting to cook her own meals, and really got, you know, she lost, I think, 40 pounds working together. And she now enjoys eating whole foods, healthy foods. And she still has her snacks during the day. So for example, she would have like a bag of Smart Food and maybe a bag of Cheetos every day. And so with that bag of some popcorn, we added apples and peanut butter. And so slowly she started to shift and choose the apple and peanut butter over the bag of popcorn or Smart Food. So it's just, it was remarkable to see that shift in her. So it's although it can be hard in the beginning, when you show up for yourself regularly, weekly, daily, it's a process, but it soon then becomes just what you do and becomes a part of who you are. So that's my program. I just wanted to quickly share that with you, and I would be happy to open it up for questions. I also wanted to share with you my contact information, my email address, phone number, and my Instagram, and open it up for any questions you might have. And if we don't, that's great too. So I do want to thank you all for showing up today, for being here for yourselves, taking this time just for you. And because often we are always doing things for other people and we don't really show up for ourselves. So pat yourselves on the back for being here, and hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday and the weekend ahead. And thank you for being here.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Good things to
Thank
think
you.
about.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of good things to think about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
appreciate
And
it.
to experiment with.
Yeah. That too. All right. Well, everyone have a great weekend.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye, all. Nice to meet all of you.
You too. You too.